I think what's been interesting is how the current generation, I would say, in the last few years, the Chinese entrepreneurs and startups that I've seen are being born global. I think in, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, you had some Chinese startups that were, very focused on a domestic play. They sort of said, oh, we've seen something that works in other markets. We're going to try this here in China. We're going to put a China spin on it. And nowadays, I see a lot more companies who are saying, yeah, we're starting in China, or maybe we're starting in multiple locations, but the world is our market, and we're going to just sort of leverage the domestic market here for to support our global approach. And so I find that really, really interesting. We've seen in recent months, questions about delisting Chinese companies from the U.S. markets. We've seen then responses on the Chinese side. And so I think, unfortunately, the landscape, I don't see it getting better in the short term for tech companies in this space. So I would say the biggest risk facing tech companies is this geopolitical or regulatory and regulatory risks. In terms of who's winning or losing, I don't really think about it in those terms, because the systems are really quite different. Well, look, I think what's happening in China now is really not new and not so different, right? I mean, we had probably first the European Union looking into Google and privacy and antitrust. The United States is looking at all of its tech companies in terms of the monopolies, in terms of the influence that these have, and I think what you've had is with a lot of technology. The pace of innovation is faster than the pace of regulation, and entrepreneurs are creating new tech, and regulators can't keep up. And so I think what you're seeing now is, as tech companies around the world have, essentially, because of their position, become monopolies or quasi-monopolies, now regulators around the world are trying to figure out how to regulate that tech. And I don't see that pattern changing, because it's really hard for a regulator in any country to be as cutting edge and dynamic as an entrepreneur. It's opposite ends of the spectrum. What I think China has done well in many cases is to allow innovation to happen and to be light touch on the regulation until the technology gets to a certain point, and then they can be more sophisticated in their response. Exciting. No, a surprise, because I've never been to this venue, even though I live 10 minutes away, and to see how the focus on really what can be done to nurture young talents and entrepreneurial talents in Jiang District is good to see. It's reassuring.